Chapter 7, you guys, is about the periodic table. Basically, the periodic properties, how they repeat itself for the elements. And it's one I'm going to go through kind of quickly because we've done a lot of it already. Okay. Um, Remember the development of the periodic table, you can see it been ancient times or whatever. But Dmitri Mendeleev is the guy that gets credit for it. There was another guy, Lothar Meyer, what a name, right? They both worked on it. They came up with their ideas. They were very similar. The thing is, Mendeleev was much more outgoing. He published faster, so he gets credit for the table, and poor Meyer doesn't get credit for anything. But basically, they organized the elements. And when Mendeleev did it, he did it by atomic number. It's been fixed. A guy by the name of Moseley fixed it. He put it in by atomic number. But what was really cool about what they did was, like, if they had an element that hadn't been discovered, but by their properties, they figured out what its properties would be. One of them would be, I think, germanium. And they said, this is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to act like. And they were spot on. So that was pretty cool. But you can see how the elements have been, discovered through time. Okay. His periodic table, again, he said, AKA silicon, which is germanium. And look at how close he was. Again, it hadn't been discovered, but because his table was organized by properties, you could figure out the properties of missing elements. And like I said, with germanium, look how close he was. And again, it was because the properties repeat themselves. That's what periodic means. And that's where the information came from. Okay. Again, remember, all elements are put in the periodic table by their atomic number. He did it by atomic mass, and it didn't work in all places. There was a few places that it was messed up. So once they discovered the atom, the nuclear atom by Rutherford, remember he was the gold foil guy? Moseley, that's the one I was talking about before, he said, wait a minute. Instead of putting him in by atomic mass, let's put him in by atomic number. He did it experimentally, and it actually worked perfect. So the number of protons determines where they are, and that actually determines their properties. So it worked out really well. So Mendeleev invented the table. Moseley fixed it. Okay. The periodic table means there's a repeating pattern, and there is for the properties. You go start at the alkali metals and the alkali earth metals, and then you get in the transition metals. They all have similar properties. Okay. And it's really based on their valence electrons, which we're going to talk about more next chapter, but that gives them their properties. In other words, they kind of look the same. They react with the same things, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So this was the things that this chapter deals with, is the size of the atoms and the ions. A thing called ionization energy, electron affinity, that means how much they want electrons, and then some of their trends. Okay. And again, I'm going to go through them pretty quick because we've done a lot of this already. Okay. So again, when we talk about the nuclear charge, we're talking about the charge of the nucleus. And it depends on the protons. If you have 11 protons, its nucleus is charged with 11 protons, 11 positive charges. So it needs to have 11 negative charges, okay, that are attracted to each other. And so if you're talking about an atom, they're going to be the same number because an atom doesn't have a charge. Okay, so the forces of the electron depends on the charge there, the charge of the middle, the nucleus, and how many there are. Okay, so sizes of atoms, if you look here, it's a little hard to see, but these guys as you go down, they get larger. Well, that makes sense because you're adding more layers. Okay, but the weird thing is if you go this way, they get smaller. And the reason for that is when you have potassium, you'll have one electron on that outside energy. When you go to calcium, you have two, so it gets pulled in a little closer. And they get more and more, so they get pulled in closer and closer. So once you get here, you got 1 point. Then it gets bigger because you got another layer. And then again, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So as you go down, they get larger because you're adding more layers. As you go across, they get smaller because you're adding more electrons, and that pulls them in tighter. Okay, here's another example to show you ions. Okay, the metals, this is, if you look here, they have the ion is smaller, again, because it gets rid of a whole level. But when you're talking about the anions, the nonmetals, they get larger because they're adding electrons. And that makes perfect sense to me, I guess. So with the metals, when they become ions, they become cations. they actually become smaller. They lose a whole level. The nonmetals, they get larger because they're adding electrons into their level. Okay? Again, the cations are smaller because they lose that outermost energy level. The anions are larger because they're adding more electrons on there. Okay? Now, that's kind of common sense, right? Okay? Ionization energy is a number that is assigned to every element. And what it does is it tells you how much energy does it take to remove an electron. Okay? If you're a metal, that number is not going to be very high because remember, they give away their electrons. If you're a nonmetal, that number is very high because they have like 6 and 7. They're looking for 8. So they need to add 1 or 2. They're not going to give up their electrons. They want electrons. So they have these numbers that tells you it's how much energy do you have to add to get rid of the electrons. Okay, so here's some numbers. And they actually have the first and the second and so on. Like sodium, 496. And if you get down here to chlorine, 1,251. The nonmetals versus the metals. Okay, they have successive too. Like you can see here for magnesium, it takes 738 kilojoules of energy to get rid of the first one. But if you try to get rid of the second one, then it takes even more. So, you know, obviously it's going to take more as you move along. But the thing to notice is the nonmetals, it takes a lot more energy because they're really not willing to give up their electrons. The metals, they're much more giving. It takes a lot less energy and they'll give up their electrons easier. Okay. Again, when you're looking at ionization energy, it generally increases across a period. So period one, group, the first column, it's going to get more when you get to the second, to the third, to the fourth, okay? And it generally decreases down a group, okay, which is opposite. But again, that's because they get bigger, and so it takes more energy. And I think we have a diagram that shows us better. Okay, so here's the numbers, okay? You can see, I wish this was a little bit larger, but okay. It takes 520 for lithium, 496 for sodium, so it takes less and less because these guys are closer to the nucleus. They have a little bit stronger hold. So when you get down here, it's really easy to get rid of them. Okay. Hydrogen, you notice, is really high. Hydrogen only has 1 electron and it won't give it up. It's like its baby. It will share it, but it won't give it up. And you look at these guys over here, the the noble gases are huge because, again, they don't really like to form bonds. But these guys have much higher. But if you go across 496, 738, you can see this way it increases, but when you go down, it decreases. Again, you're getting farther and farther away from the nucleus, so they don't have that hold. Okay? We talked about some irregularities when we're talking about valence electrons. Okay? Again, you guys don't have to worry about those. I don't expect you to know all the problem children when it comes to elements. Okay, so we're just going to stick with the ones what we have. Okay, let's see. Electron configuration. Cations, those are the metals. They lose electrons. Okay, so lithium becomes +1. It was 1s2, 2s1. Now it would just be 1s2 because it lost that electron. Okay, and so when we're talking about electron configurations of ions, there's going to be some missing electrons, or there's going to be some extra electrons. If you're talking about a metal, it's going to be missing electrons. If you're talking about a nonmetal, it's going to gain electrons. And again, whatever the charge is, +2, it lost 2 electrons. +1, it lost 1 electron. Okay, if the anion, like fluorine is by far the most reactive nonmetal. It has 7 electrons in its outer energy. It only needs 1, so it really, really, really wants that 1. So again, it's going to add 1 electron. That's what the -1 means. Okay, it added 1 electron. Okay. Electron affinity is another one. It means how much do they really want electrons. Okay. It's kind of this, we haven't talked about that one yet, so never mind. But chlorine has 7 in its outer energy. It needs 8. It needs 1. It has a high electron affinity. It really wants that 1. And usually when this happens, it's exothermic. Okay, so, and for most elements, it's going to be exothermic. A lot of the reactions we talk about give off energy. Okay. For electron affinity, okay, look at the numbers as you go down: 60, 53, 48, 7. These guys down here really don't care about their electrons. They are more than willing to give them up. Look at these guys over here. Huge numbers. These guys have 7. They need 1 more. They're going to be, they really, 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 really want their electrons. Notice the noble gases don't even have a number because they don't want anything. They're like in their own little world. These guys have really low electron affinities. They don't want electrons. They're more than willing to give their electrons up. And as you go across here, you'll notice it's 60, 0 for beryllium. Yeah, these guys really are low. There's not really a huge pattern, but when you go up and down, there is. Okay. Metallic character. We've talked about metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. Most of our elements are metals. Here's your metalloids. Those are our semiconductors. Here's your nonmetals and hydrogen. You know, hydrogen hangs out in its own place. Okay. Here's the cations. This is on that periodic table that I gave you that has the ions. You know, metals form cations. They are more than willing to give up their electrons. They become positive. Nonmetals are looking for electrons. They become negative. They're the anions. Okay. And again, hydrogen is weird. Hydrogen can become positive or negative. Hydrogen is just a weird duck. It doesn't follow the rules of any other element. It's unto its own, I guess. Okay. So again, we've talked about the metals. We've already did this, I'm sure, but metals they're shiny. They conduct heat and electricity. That's what we love them for. You can hammer them into sheets. They're malleable. They're ductile. Stretch them into wires. They're solids at room temperature, all of them except mercury. So every metal is solid at room temperature, but mercury is a liquid. And they have low ionization energy. In other words, they're more than willing to give up their electrons. So metals are much more giving, okay, than all the rest of them, okay? When you're looking at chemistry, remember if you take a metal and a nonmetal, you're going to have an ionic compound. And we talked about that when we did naming compounds, okay? They tend to be basic, which means a metal oxide, in other words, when you react metal with oxygen, it tends to has a high pH, okay? If you react it with a metal, with an acid, you're going to get a low, okay? The nonmetals are just the opposite. They are insulators, they're brittle, they're not shiny, they're not conductors, everything about them. The nonmetals have the biggest group because you have solids, you have like sulfur and carbon, you have gases, nitrogen, oxygen, and you have liquids, bromine. Bromine is probably the only liquid there, but you have the whole scam. Whereas metals, it's one liquid and all the rest are solids. Okay. Again, dull, brittle, they're poor conductors. Actually, they're pretty much non-conductors. Okay. They have their electron affinity, they really, really, really want electrons. So they form ions. They form negative compounds. Okay. Here's some nonmetals. They like to form molecular compounds. If you put 2 nonmetals together, that's when we name them the dis and the tris and all that. So they're molecular compounds. And most of their oxides are acidic, so they're opposite of a metal. Okay. Here it compares them, and again, you can look at that later. I'm zipping through here because I want to get through this. Okay. The metalloids, there's not very many of them. There's only 6. They're all solids at room temperature. And again, what we really love them for is that semiconductor. They allow information to pass through them, but slow enough so something can read it, something can process it. So computer chips. If you think about California, San Jose is called Silicon Valley. That's where a lot of computer chips are made. They use a lot of silicon. Germanium is also another one that produces it. Okay, not just silicon. Okay, we have trends and groups, and remember a group is up and down. They have similar properties. Again, we talked about these groups. Okay, the alkali metals is the first group, not including hydrogen. Okay, they all look similar. They're very reactive. You know, they have similar properties. The alkali earth metals, that's going to be like calcium, magnesium, those guys. Again, they're very reactive as well. The oxygen group, there's a little bit more variety there when you get to the nonmetals. The halogens would be fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. Halogen means salt former. If you put one of these guys with a metal, you're going to get a salt. And then the noble gases, the stuck-up guys. They have a full energy level. They don't react with anybody. They just hang out by themselves. Okay. Hydrogen is a non-metal, but it hangs out with a metal. Hydrogen is a weird duck, just plain and simple. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to quit here and then I'll finish up the notes in another one. So I'll put both of them just in one part. Okay. So again, we'll pick up at alkali metals.